Alright, peace be upon you, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Now, in today's video, I just want to give you guys a channel recommendation. And normally I would do this in my community posts, but I felt that this man's contributions and scholarship and the information he's putting out is so important that I felt I needed to make a video on this. So, the channel is called My Lunch Break, and I'm sure many of you guys have probably seen him before, but for those who haven't, I'd recommend checking him out. And what he essentially proves or he shows is exactly what the Quran says. So let me rewind it a little bit. The view or the kind of, I should say, historiography we're given in the modern world is that we are at the apogee of human civilization, that we are the most advanced, we have all this technology, we're so smart, we're so strong, we're so much better than the people of the past. And it's just not true. It's just not true. Um, when you read the Quran, it's very clear. God says that the people of the past tilled the earth, that they mastered the earth far greater than we did. Okay, so what the kind of view we get from the Quran is that mankind is getting weaker, his might is decreasing over time. We are degenerating. We are not going up, we're going down. And what this guy shows is so there are all these, it's not just in like Europe, in all over the world, but even in America you'll see these amazing buildings, incredible structures that are built. And this is like even before the official date of the invention of the first power tool, which is 1895. You'll just see these phenomenal buildings there, and all this stuff is always razed to the ground, it's always destroyed in the end. And it's like he's proving and showing what the Quran says, where the people of the past, they were greater than us now. God says, like, I quoted that verse before where God says, look and see that the people of the past, they tilled the earth greater than us. And people understand this deep down, that the descendants are not greater, but it's the ancestors that were greater, because uh, people do ancestor worship. This is a major, and I'm not condoning it, of course, it's idolatry, but the ancients and even people nowadays, they do ancestor worship. They look at the past, they look towards the patriarchs, the founders of nations, the founders of civilizations, the founders of entire ethnic stocks and ethnic groups. They look at the past and they worship people of the past. Why? Because we know deep down that the people of the past, their civilizations were greater than ours. Okay, we don't worship our future descendants. People worship their past descendants, or should I say, their past ancestors. And even if you look, like the way God describes in the Quran, he describes Pharaoh and his civilization and Suleiman. Uh, if you think that these were just like tribal chieftains running around in the desert of Arabia with a cloth on their head, just these destitute, impoverished people, you are sorely, sorely mistaken. That is one of the biggest psyops we are given today. We are led to believe that the people of the past are weaker when they are not. They are hiding our history. This is not the first time there's been a world empire. There's been multiple world empires in history, and there's been many resets in history. We have resets in the Quran. God destroys entire civilizations. He brings them to the ground. He leaves nothing left of them. And you know, the the shaitan nowadays, he is convinced and he is encouraging the ruling elite to hide from us our history and our past. That there, not long ago, just a couple hundred years ago, there was a massive reset. There was some kind of wicked world empire, probably, let's be real, the empire of Pharaoh. He wasn't that long ago, and God destroyed his entire empire and the world, and they're trying to hide what happened in the past and trying to say that we are the greatest. So if you look all over America, there were these just incredible monuments, incredible architecture. Look at this. This is let's see, um, the World's Fair building in Philadelphia. Now, keep in mind, and remember, all the stuff I'm getting from My Lunch Break, you can check his channel out. He goes into this in far more detail. But this is the World's Fair building. These are all built in the 1800s, before 1895, before the invention of the first power tool. Just look at this stuff. The intricate detailing, the beautiful architecture. Even with our modern tools, we don't even build like this today. What are some amazing monuments that people laud at, just that have been built in recent times. The Hotel Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. Oh, oops, mistake. Hotel Riyadh. Look at this. This is nothing. This is nothing compared to this. It hasn't, like, there's no comparison. What's another one that we have that people laud over? The Burj Khalifa. Burj Khalifa. Again, even with our modern tools, this is nothing. I mean, my wife was even describing this as kind of funny. Like, it's like a toothpick. You could just clean your teeth with this thing. Compare that to this. Here's this building in his video in Chicago, and again, it was razed to the ground, as all of these are. They're all destroyed. Look at this building in Chicago. The intricate detailing, the stonework, the carving. You see these Romanesque statues on the top, carved in stone. You're telling me, okay, the first power tool was invented in 1895. Y'all are telling me that people with hand tools and no technological assistance whatsoever, because remember, all this stuff was invented in the modern age. We're smarter than everyone in the past. We have all these tools that they didn't. You're telling me that people made this with hand tools? Look at how small the human beings are on the bottom compared to these statues. These statues are like 3 or 4 times taller than them. How did they bring these stones to the top there? I'm telling you, the abilities of the ancients and the, the scope and might of the people who were before us, they are hiding these civilizations and the knowledge of them. Look at this. You have this. Yeah, this is the World's Fair building in Philadelphia. You have the Mark Hopkins Mansion, again, also destroyed as well in San Francisco, California. Look at this thing. You see the feathering on the side, the engraving, the, oh, my mistake, the precision with which the windows are carved in. I mean, again, we don't even build stuff like this today. How long do our buildings today last with our modern technology and how smart and amazing we are? 100 years, 80 years before they're falling apart, they look like garbage. I mean, we have, if we accept the history that they give us, they have these stone towers, these stone monuments that literally last hundreds and hundreds of years and look like the way they were when they were first constructed. How can we be better? Everything else is degenerating about the modern world. Our music is worse. Our language is worse. Our health is worse. They tell you this laughable narrative of, oh, the average lifespan of somebody living 600 years ago was just like 40 years old. They would be lucky to live till 50. Unbelievable. Ridiculous. You can go into the villages of Pakistan today and you can see guys in their 90s, old men in their 90s with no medication, no walking cane, no wheelchair, no nothing. Working in the field, they got a beautiful tan on their face, their skin is glowing, they're eating a healthy diet. You're telling me the people in the past, they lived longer? Just, you can go and confirm, or so you can go in and confirm for yourself how false this is. So our music is going down. Our health is going down. Our looks are going down. They look better than us, the people in the past. Our what else is there? Like I said, our languages are going down. The languages they spoke are far more pristine, far more beautiful than what we have today. And even our architecture is getting worse. Our uninspired, ugly buildings, we can't even build this. We don't build like this today. And yet you guys, again, are telling me that 1895 was the invention of the first power tool, that they were building this stuff by hand. I don't believe that. The Quran tells us that the previous civilizations, they tilled the earth far more than we did. Okay? And I'm seeing evidence of this. Go to your local downtown. You can see this. The buildings of the past are better than the ones now. They still last. They're still holding up to the test of time, whereas ours just fall apart. Here's the Tower of Jewels, also in San Fran, California. Again, a similar idea. This is kind of small. Let me, there's a colorized picture. Again, you can see these pillars and columns, the fine stonework and detailing, which just culminates at the top, the pinnacle there. What else is there? You could just see, like, even it's not just Europe and America. It's also all around the world. Look at some of these, and throw out the idolatry for a second. The Hindu temples. like just how beautiful that they've been constructed. Beautiful Hindu temples. Hindu if you actually go zoom into this one, I forget the name of this one. Maybe it's the Lakshmi, or maybe the Lakshmi is the gold one. I don't know. But if you look at all of the colors, the color scheme and coordination, and all of these are various kind of floral designs and statue designs. Oh, again, when you guys, not my followers, but when people try to tell me that we are better than the men who existed in the past, I see no evidence of this at all. Even their structures, they last longer and they look more beautiful than what we have now. Just phenomenal, breathtaking. Whereas what we have today, let's just see any downtown. Uh, what's a random city that comes to our mind? Boston. Okay. Downtown Boston. It's the first thing that came to my mind. You have some of those old buildings as well in the downtown, but most of this stuff, look at this. Uninspired, unoriginal, cookie cutter, copy and paste, no character. Whereas the benighted, ignorant people with no technology and no knowledge, this is what they were able to produce. Meanwhile, this is fallen apart. I mean, if you look at places like Detroit, Detroit is just like it looks like a war zone. How bad it is. You know what this guy hints at, this gentleman here at my lunch break, is that these buildings, when they came to America, they were actually here before. They didn't build this stuff, they just repurposed them. You would find these all over, like in the 1800s, just insurance buildings, banks, just random places where it looks like a Roman-esque Colosseum. You know, roofs that are massive, way taller than what we have today. And you know, even on top of the roof, there's all these amazing, intricate designs and engravings, and just so much more thoughtful. Again, I don't see any evidence that the people of the past were weaker than we are. God tells us in the Quran, travel in the land and see how is the final outcome of the evildoers. This is not just for the people of Arabia. This is not just for, uh, you know, the people who the Quran originally was revealed in front of. No, this is for us now. Travel in the land and see how is the outcome of the final of the evildoers. Look at your local downtown and just take in those buildings. I'm telling you, they've been around for a lot longer than we are told, okay? And they were built by people a lot more sophisticated than us. Go and take a look and see them. See, they were people who lived there at one point. They were people who mastered the land, and now they're not here anymore. God tells us this applies to us today. You can go to your local downtown, travel in the land, and see how was the final outcome of those who came before you who denied God and they were judged, and now a new people were made to inherit the earth after them. Even if you look at the example of I was saying this before, of Solomon in the Quran. Solomon prays to God. He says, "Give me a kingdom that nobody after me will ever be able to compare to." Like and God grants his prayer. So if we accept the Quran and we take it literally, we take it seriously, we have to accept that Solomon had the greatest kingdom in the world. He had some kind of worldwide kingdom, man, and this is hidden from us, this knowledge. Fir'aun as well. God said, I think it's either about Haman or Qarun, that uh, they were given keys to a treasury which would weigh down a band of strong men. Okay, when they give you this history of, again, the Quran and the Bible, the histories associated therewith were just about small local tribes running around in the desert with their, and in the Bronze Age with their swords and stuff. What it does is it makes the Quran and the Bible seem outdated. That these were just written by foolish people in that time period with their limited understanding, and it's not fit to be applied in the modern world. And it makes us hopeless as well. If we think that the tyranny today, the civilization that they've made today, is so much greater and more powerful than the people of the past, then um, it renders us just black pilled and hopeless. Like, okay, what are we going to do about this? We are dealing with new problems that the people of the past, the prophets of old, didn't have to go through. That's not true. Pharaoh was a tyrant like you wouldn't even believe. He was like a tyrant you wouldn't even believe. The people today have nothing on them, and that's why they worship their ancestors. They look to the past. Uh, it's always the past that's exalted and not the future, because deep down we all know that these were mightier men than ourselves. And you'll find these all over the world, in South Korea, in Singapore, in China, in India, in Pakistan, just all kinds of things. And you have to ask yourself, just one more thing that comes to my mind. Even God has tells us of Suleiman, how he incorporated the jinn, or he brought the jinn under him, and the jinn would listen to him, and they would build him basins and statues. And do, do you think what we have today? I mean, God literally gave this guy the ability to subdue jinn. You have no idea how intelligent these beings are. They are ancient. They've been around for way longer than humanity. That a man who has mastered the jinn and gets them to work for him, that he can't build things that are greater than this? Okay? God specifically chooses to mention the towers and basins that were built for this man. Do you think that they were any regular thing? No. This guy had a worldwide massive kingdom, and the monuments that he built were unlike anything you could ever believe. And God knows best. What if these, which are all razed, they're all destroyed and brought to the ground, are these remnants of that past? Are these remnants of the old world? The jinn. He even says to Solomon, when it said, "Who can bring me Saba's throne, Queen Saba's throne, or the Queen of Saba's throne?" And he says, "I can bring it to you before your glance returns to you." That's some kind of like wireless transmission and technology. And again, there's a huge portion of our history that is hidden from us, and it's there. Sorry, they hide this from us, so we don't understand just how amazing our history is, and how the people of the past, they had to deal with far greater tyrants than we are. It's just a way for the atheist to exalt, like, oh, we're at the pinnacle, we're smarter than everyone else, and nobody can compare with us. Again, I don't see that. I don't see any evidence of this. These buildings last longer, they look nicer, the people looked nicer, they lived longer, their philosophies were better, their ideologies were better, their food was better, their languages were better. It seems like everything important and cool and anything that's worth seeing comes from the past and the ancient world. And even if you look at the historical timeline they give you, it's just ridiculous. Apparently, everything that is important, everything that we use on a daily basis today, was all invented in the 1800s. That's when human, or like modern civilization, really began. So, I mean, the internet, 1800s and onwards, the internet, power tools, the light bulb, wireless technology, the radio, the TV, all this stuff. So the kind of historical timeline we're given is that humanity was living in roughly the same manner for the first however many thousands of years they've been around. Okay, so the person from 500 years ago lived not the average person from 500 years ago lived not very different to the person from 1500 years ago or 2000 years ago, living off the land with basic manual equipment, no wireless technology. And suddenly in the 1800s, so we have this timeline going along, okay? Everybody at this point is living very similar to each other. Then this last little burp at the end, 1800 to 2024, all the important stuff is invented. Do you believe that? That's ridiculous. Basically, people were doing nothing all the way back then, and then suddenly in the 1800s, everything important comes about. No, they are like I said, they are hiding knowledge of these past civilizations, and obviously, we would expect the Satan to do that. We would expect that because he doesn't want you to know that there were greater civilizations before you who were destroyed by God for their sins. He wants you to exalt and think, we're the smartest, we're the greatest, there's nobody like us, just sniffing your own farts, just high off your own farts, how smart you are. He wants you to be like that so that God destroys you too and sends you to hell. Because when you reflect on the past peoples, when you reflect on the former peoples, it gives you some humility. You think to yourself, these people were better than us and God destroyed them. Do we think that we're going to circumvent the plan of God? No way. We have to believe in him, do good deeds, have fear of him, be remembering of him, because we can't escape his judgment, just as the people before us who were giants compared to us, they weren't able to escape. He wants you to forget that. And after every single one of these great resets that God does, when God just brings pretty much hell from the sky on these civilizations, when a new group of people come up, when a new group of people take over the land after them, the shaitan, he tries to get them to hide that history from the past. This is just something that's happened over and over. And like I said, I highly recommend you check his channel. It'll give you some kind of physical and picture-based historical context to what the Quran is telling you. What the Quran is telling you is not fantasies. It's telling you the truth. The people of the past were mightier than we are. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's really all I got to say on the matter. I hope this talk was a blessing. And yeah, peace to you. Remember, deceit abounds, so keep your eyes wide open. Peace out.
Peace and blessings in the name of the Most High, viewer. My name is Walid Naeem, and I am a zealous submitter to the one true God, the creator of all mankind. Do you notice something wrong with the world? Something strange? Despite us having a church, synagogue, and mosque in every neighborhood, how has this entire Western civilization fallen into abject atheism, nihilism, and savagery? Why does life just seem so dull, so meaningless, and so devoid of anything real in the Occidental world? Despite the ubiquitous presence of these religious institutions, why are our so-called Muslim sons in large numbers drinking, smoking, partying, and chasing after women, with no seeming desire to do anything more with their life other than satisfy their base pleasures, when God has commanded them to be clean, righteous, and responsible leaders of their community? And why are our hijabi so-called Muslim daughters walking around with tight jeans that reveal their figure, with TikTok accounts posting semi-provocative, self-absorbed videos of themselves online for the world to see, when God has commanded them to lengthen their garments and be modest in their mannerisms? What has happened here? These young men and women are supposed to be making themselves right before God while raising the next generation of ardent defenders of the holy faith. But it seems that Islam features no more in their lives other than a scarf on their head, a Friday fidgeting around in the mosque when their parents forced them to go against their will, or a decorative hanger in their car. At this rate, if God allows us to continue going down the road it is, then Islam and the Quran will become pretty much non-existent in the lives of most of our descendants, if it wasn't already non-existent now. If we do not take a stand soon, in a few generations our children's children will likely be indistinguishable from the secular West. Is that the kind of world we want to live in? Our kids to live in? A world practically devoid of the remembrance of the one God and all things sane? I obviously can't speak for you, but for my own self, I can personally say, count me out of it. I'm not going to sit here and just watch my brothers and sisters, those who claim to believe in God alone, believe in Judgment Day, His prophets and angels, and all the other aspects of this holy creed, get duped into going to hell. I'm not going to let this happen without at least something of an effort on my end to reroute this dark trajectory. So, again, how in the world do we end up here? There is a mosque in practically every neighborhood in the West, and no shortage of donations that get dropped in their boxes. They have had lots of funding, lots of time, and unquestioning support from their respective congregations, yet somehow have been run over by the secular atheist. All of their so-called Muslim children go to the atheist, secular public schools for most of their week to be taught beliefs that are completely incompatible with the Quran. And we wonder why they have ended up the way they are. If these houses, and by these houses I mean the mosques, were truly of God, that were doing everything right, then why would our Lord let them get so decisively trampled upon by their enemies? Why do the wicked have all of the reins of power here? Clearly, something is not adding up. Well, it is my thesis here today that the vast, vast majority of mosques that exist in this world today have lost their way and follow a religion which is completely foreign to the Quran. This is why they have failed so miserably in the West, and it seems that God has forgotten them. In truth, the real reason behind their shortcoming is that they, and many of us, have forgotten God Himself, which is why He has left us here collecting our bitter receipts. So, what are my exact criticisms of the mosques today? As a Muslim and a man committed to the truth above all else, what are my personal gripes with their institution, which claims to be for God? The first glaring problem I can think of is that the majority of people who call themselves Muslim have allied themselves with a body of literature that is foreign to the Word of God, treating it equal to, and in fact above, the Quran itself. Of course, I am talking about the Hadith. Listen, the facts are this. There is no justification within the Quran which tells us to follow this hadith stuff, which came hundreds of years after the Prophet Muhammad died, and therefore he could have had no ability to oversee what people have said about him and determine if it is true or false. It is now becoming crystal clear, especially in the last 10 to 20 years, that many things that have been ascribed to him in their most quote unquote authoritative texts, which they call their Sahih Hadiths, are forgeries that directly contradict God's final revelation. To take these words of men, i.e., the Hadith, and hold them to be equally authoritative to the words of God would be breaking the first and most important commandment, which is to worship God alone, making no equals with him. To say that these supposed words of Muhammad, which are not even Muhammad's own words, but simply very doubtful rumors about what people who existed hundreds of years after him say he said, that have been decided upon by the scholars as authoritative holds equal, or in fact any weight in our faith comparable to the verbatim words of God himself, the Holy Quran, is idolatry. You are exalting man's words to the status of divinity, which should only be given to God's words. Nothing comes even close to the Quran, because God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, is its author. This includes the Hadith too, which pales in comparison and is superfluous to the glorious Quran. If you are interested in seeing a full refutation of the Hadith, you may watch my video titled A Defense of Prophet Muhammad, David Wood and Hadith Exposed, which is linked below. In it, along with refuting and putting in his place the worst opponent of Islam on the internet, Mr. David Wood, I also expose how the Hadith is completely contradictory to the Quran and the source of much of the Muslim world's problems. It is a 2-hour-long documentary where I seek to demonstrate the true character of Muhammad in the Quran, defending his history and personality with primary source quotations. I clear the last prophet of God's name from the people who have tarnished his reputation the most, which are certain types of Christians, and, sad to say, Hadith-following Muslims, which have said many terrible things about him. No, Muhammad was not a money-hungry, tyrannical warlord who married a 6-year-old girl. He was a shy, humble, meek man who married adult women, had compassion for even his worst enemies, and oftentimes had a tough time even standing up for himself out of fear of hurting other people's feelings. This is all demonstrated in detail in my video. Once again, the link for that will be in the description under the tab, The True Character of Muhammad in the Quran. So that is the first problem with the mosques, the reason for which I feel they have been forsaken by God, their adoption of an apostate literature which contradicts their foundational scripture. The second point of contention I have with many of the mosques is their seeming unwillingness to say anything controversial which may make them face persecution from their government. The fact that 9/11 was not only an inside job, but the fact that no planes hit the Twin Towers on that day, and the whole charade was a hoax designed by the governments of the world to forever frame the Muslim people as terrorists and justify invasions in our countries, should be taught to every man, woman, and child. This great fraud of the September attacks has left such a lasting, enduring reputation on every brown person, and Muslim in general, that it should be discussed in every mosque. Our people are not responsible for that crime, but it was the governments of the world who carried out that plot and framed us for it. 9/11 is just only one small example, though. There are many other quote-unquote conspiracy theories, which are really just conspiracy facts, avoided by the mosques due to their controversy, like the fact that the monetary system in the West is an ungodly scam based on usury, the fact that the so-called healthcare system is a predatory empire which doesn't try to cure anybody, but instead makes money off of human suffering, the fact that sodomite propaganda is being promoted to the masses, including our children, and the fact that the thing which I will call the C-19er, to avoid censorship, was a hoax perpetrated by the powers that be to greatly expand their police state, censorship incentives, and surveillance systems worldwide in order to create their new world order, and much more. These governments that have occupied our lands are de facto terrorist regimes, and the mosques seem to say nothing of it. They appear to be more concerned with not being labeled extremists while they live their comfortable, well-funded lives, avoiding topics that are hard to deal with due to the abject persecution they bring. That is my second problem with them. Their, at the very least, lack of awareness, or if not, perhaps lack of willingness to address the real geopolitical situation going on in the world. And lastly, my third trouble with the mainstream mosques, which can also be put into the category of conspiracy facts, is their complete ignorance on the true nature of the earth. It may sound as a shock to you, my viewer, that the Quran, the Bible, and in fact all of the ancient scriptures teach the earth is flat and stationary. This is the only model of the world which is compatible with those texts and also scientifically provable. This flat earth conspiracy, which should really be called the globe earth conspiracy, is one of the biggest lies of the modern world, we are told, and goes in line with what I said earlier about the endemic corruption of the governments of the world. Everything you have been told about where you live is a fabrication, and the space agencies are a shameless hoax. For a fully detailed presentation on the subject of flat earth, where I demonstrate the science, the history, the philosophy, the verses in the Bible and Quran proving it, and much more, you can read my book titled The Flat Earth Manifesto, which is linked in the description. This work runs to nearly 1,200 pages and is practically a textbook on not only the topic of flat earth, but the subject of physics proper, and I expose the biggest fraudulent religion of the West, which is science worship, otherwise known as scientism. As with all of my work, it too is available for free. No, you do not live on a pathetic speck of dust spinning around in the middle of nowhere in space. You live in a brilliant, intelligently designed terrarium created by God and are at the center of the universe. Again, to learn more, the link to the Flat Earth Manifesto will be in the description. Those right there are my three biggest scores against the mosques of today. There are more points I could bring up, but these are the major ones. These are the controversies which have estranged me from the rest of the so-called Muslim world. Believe me when I say that I would love to join them, and that it hurts me so deeply that I have to pit myself up against the very institution I was born and raised in, the mosques I attended from childhood, whose carpets upon which I walked, stood, prayed, and listened to the preaching in my earliest years. But that is the price to pay for the truth. My commitment to God and what is right is more important than my emotional attachments to a place that was once dear to my heart. Simply put, this is why I think God has forsaken us. This is why I think that the mosques have been steamrolled by the secular atheist. It is because most of us have abandoned the word of God, neglected preaching the truth, and instead chosen comfort over courageous action. That is my thesis to why this great falling away in the West has taken place. If this sounds shocking to you, if it sounds so unbelievable that the majority of the so-called Muslim world could be deceived so badly, then I simply have these verses in the Quran to show you. In the name of God, the Almighty and the Merciful. Chapter 6, verse 116. And if thou obey most of those upon the earth, they will lead thee astray from the path of God. They follow only assumption, and they are only guessing. Chapter 25, verse 30. And the messenger will say, O my Lord, my people took this Quran as a thing abandoned. God has really predicted this a millennia ago. He knew that the people who follow what is really right are few and far between, that the majority of men and women are led astray, and the people who claim to love Muhammad the most, i.e. mainstream Muslims, would abandon the glorious Quran. God has revealed to us 1,000 years ago that this all would be the case. It is my mission, therefore, by the will of God, to band together with like-minded believers who have understood the truth and work together to build a new institution from the ground up, founded upon prudent fear. We need to start fresh, start anew. We need to build a new mosque where people can hear the unfiltered preaching from the Quran alone, where men and women can get married, where children can play and be educated in the truth, and where the name of the Most High God, without any associate partners, can be remembered. We need a group of highly dedicated men who will raise and defend this institution with their own hands if need be, and go out into the world warning people of the punishment of God, bearing witness to the truth of his oneness. That is my mission, my viewer. If you found that this mission of mine has touched your heart and is something you want to get involved with, then feel free to contact me in the email below. I am located in Ontario, Canada, and I'm looking forward to form a community with like-minded believers who want to contribute to this great cause. I am neither a nationalist nor racially biased. If you follow the Quran alone and believe in the truth, then as far as I'm concerned, you are my brother in the faith. I prefer you over someone of my own kindred who denies God and commits corruption in the earth. My loyalties are primarily ideological, not racial. Remember, my viewer, that this life is short. Everything we do and don't do is recorded by God and will either bear witness for us or against us on the day of judgment. Hell is eternal, and I do not know about you, but as for me, I want to meet my Creator in the best state possible. I want to spend my life struggling to build up my people, the true Muslims, so that God may be pleased with me on that day. If you are interested in that, then feel free to join me. If not, then find something else good to do which will prepare you for your appointment with the Most High. That is where we are all going anyway. With that being said, I say peace and God bless to all of you good people. Take care, everyone.